And, you can go put your iPod on after you leave training. You can go do something that's a bit different, have you put your earring in if you want to. But when you come to training, you're going to work as hard and be as committed as everybody else. If not, there's no place for you. I find young men need discipline, they need direction, they need a focus. And when we don't give them that, we fail them.
It's always been the case too. Our game's always had a great responsibility because a lot of our kids come to us with huge problems. They don't all come from privileged backgrounds. They don't all come from great education or great families. And football takes on a big responsibility in that regard, doesn't it? And as a coach, I suppose, you're a huge part of that. Yeah,
well, we are. And, I'm always disappointed enormously about the bad stories I read. I never read the good stories, the ones that we know that if they hadn't played rugby league, hadn't been a part of clubs and part of having good men around them, whether it's older players, coaches or whatever else, their life would have been an absolute mess. And you know how many have changed. And sometimes you don't win the battle totally, but you know what a difference that's all made. And so I'm always...
Not a lot of those turn out to be great footballers either.
No, they don't.
Football makes a huge difference in their life, even though they don't actually make it to the top in football. It's just being with it.
And there's some of them that do, though, as well. And some of the stories, as you know, are horrific. Their backgrounds, their upbringings, and you just have nothing but admiration for them to think they've overcome all this, to even get themselves to a football team and be able to be a part of a team. And as I said, we don't read enough of those stories. All we read is the odd guy that'll, make a bit of a mistake somewhere. And, we've always got to remember we're dealing with young men. I mean, young men across this country are making mistakes every day of the week. But if you happen to play, a team sport these days, you're going to be a headline. The fans are mums and dads. Yeah. The fans know the battle are going every day with their sons and daughters, okay? And unless they're living in a fool's paradise. And that's why, the crowds are increased and we've had lots of dramas the last 2 or 3 years highlighted, but the ratings are higher than they've ever been. Because at the end of the day, the mums and dads understand that, and the mums and dads understand the game's doing something about it as well. It's not a place where it's going to be tolerated, and the game has done a lot about it in the last couple of years. But as I said, those mums and dads are the same ones as you and I as coaches are out there battling those problems every day with our kids, with our teams, about their behaviour, about being responsible, about all the things that we hold dear to ourselves. Mm.
Back when we played, we had jobs. I mean, and footballers that we played with worked on the council, worked in pubs, they went to university, they did their trades and all that sort of thing, and then they'd throw their gear off and come to training and play football. Our fellas just play football. Yeah. Is there a downside to that? I mean, do they get the grounding and the interaction with other peer groups that they need to get a totally rounded education?
Well, there's 2 quick things on that. One is today's player is much better behaved than the players that you and I played with. Okay, even though they had jobs and that they were a nightmare, some of those guys.
Absolutely.
So that's point 1. Point 2, I would love to see, and I don't think it can happen now, but they would be much more rounded if they had to go to work every day and be in an office, work with other people, interact, and not live the football life 24/7. And so our big challenge as coaches today is trying to convince them to do things outside of football so that they have a life and they have an interest. I've got to say, more are going to college, universities, but there's still a lot that are doing nothing. But the under-20s have been a great concept in that regard, is that all those young players and those squads have to have some form of employment.
Well, you're obviously doing this because you love it and you love the game. How much longer will Wayne Bennett coach?
I don't know. I've got no idea. I really don't. I enjoy what I do here. It's been great. Club's been great to me. Peter Dowse as a CEO's been great to work with. The players have been outstanding to work with. I haven't had a hiccup with these blokes here. Just really committed. They want to be good, and so it's made it a lot easier. I don't know if I could go through a couple of seasons of being with a team that wasn't playing well. I think that would put a different perspective on it at this age in my career. So right now I'm probably in a bit of a fool's paradise, but I'm enjoying it, and while I continue to enjoy it, I'll continue to do it.
You'd love to deliver him a premiership?
Well, that's what you play for, I hope, and that's what you coach for. But they're so hard to get. So much got to go into it. But if I look back on this season, there's not a lot of things that I regret right now. With 2 games to go, hopefully, certainly, next week we'll get to play again. The way we play, the way the players give themselves, their commitment to each other, I haven't got a lot of regret. So a little bit of luck and a few things fall into place. Who knows what's left in the season for us.
But from what I see, you deserve it. So best of luck over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks.
Done.
Okay.
Gus, the point you made earlier about players wanting to play for a coach, it's easy to see why a player would want to play for that man. Were you nervous before you met him, and what happened after the cameras stopped?
No, I wasn't nervous before I'd met him. We went for lunch together. We spent 2 hours down the road having a lunch, and he's just a regular footy bloke. Loves his football, loves the game, wants to talk about the game incessantly, loves to talk about his players, hates to talk about himself, and it was sickening because we agreed on everything. There was no blue, and it just ended up a loving.
Just a normal boring lunch with Gus.
It's been painted as one of the great wars of all time. How did that start?
Well, we didn't make it that way.
I bet you didn't talk about punting. He doesn't have a bet in the races, does he?
No, we didn't get to that.
I bet Gussie wasn't talking about the third at Canterbury or the fourth at Warwick Farm like you normally do.
No.
But one thing about him...
But he loves footy. He loves footy.
Oh, he does. But I'll tell you what he does love. He loves the people he works with. There was a great piece in that first part earlier when he spoke about Michael Wayman with great affection, like a father talking about a son in many respects.
Absolutely.
And one of the things is he spoke about, you know, the generations and young blokes, 18 and 19-year-olds, but he doesn't put up with that nonsense.
Yeah.
Brady,
if you misbehave there, you know, you're in a corner.
You know him pretty well, Brady. It has been icy at times, hasn't it?
It has. Actually, Gus, I was outside Queensland's shed after Game 3 of the 2003 Origin Series, and Bennett had put on a shocker at the press conference, right? Queensland's won to only lose the series 2-1. You beat them 2-0.
Yep.
Bennett had a shocker in the press conference. He took it out on the Sydney press. I think your old mate Chip Frilingos copped it off him.
Yeah, he gave a spray.
And he was at the door of the shed, the door open, Wayne was there. You were coming down the corridor, and you sort of had your hands in your pockets. You were sort of walking slowly down the corridor. You saw Bennett there at the door. You put your hand out to shake his hand. And he saw you. He didn't slam it in your face, but he just leant back into the shed and just shut the door. You just put your hand back in your pocket and kept walking like it was normal business.
I knew he'd do that. I knew he'd do that.
And he brushed him.
I knew it was one of those old smothers.
It was one of those. I couldn't believe it, honestly. I couldn't believe it. Like the two coaches could have been like that, but anyway.
But we
now
didn't
they have lunch.
But we didn't hate each other.
Let's face it. The punter loves to think that the coaches hate each other anyway. And got
better when they do, I'll tell you.
Got two great rivalries coming up this weekend in the grand final qualifiers. Don't forget to go to ticketek.com.au to get your tickets. And a big challenge going out to Tigers fans and, of course, also to, well, all the fans, but particularly, I reckon, the Tigers and the Dragons to make that a massive final this weekend. All right, we got tomorrow's newspaper headlines coming up after the break, but ahead of that, let's go back to Friday night. It was the Tigers and the Raiders fans out talking about the McIntyre system, and you can see that how you feel about that depends entirely on which side of the fence you're sitting.
Raiders all the way! Yes!
What do you guys think of the home final system? A lot of people have been critical of the McIntyre system. You guys finished 7th, the Tigers finished 3rd, but you get the home game. Is it fair?
Yeah, it is, because we're bringing out the community tonight. Back house, Canberra Stadium, why not?
Tigers lost last week, we won, we get the home final.
So you think it's as simple as that?
Simple as that.
Oh, it's a bit unfair for teams finishing 3rd, I guess. You know, we play so well all year and, you know, have to come down here and play someone who comes 7th at home.
It favours some, favours others. You've got to play teams home and away. I mean, Jimmy Sheens would know that all those years that he won grand finals with the Raiders, we had to travel to Sydney for every game. So, I mean, for them to come and whinge about coming down here, that's just bad luck. That's the way it works out.
So you think the system's good?
Yeah, well, every year somebody complains about it, but you've got to win. If you win, you retain the advantage. And we won last week, and they did it. And I can't see what everyone's whinging about.
It's a joke. The McIntyre system should have been done away with, and the AFL system should have been taking place. Losing an extra time, and we have to travel to Canberra and finish 7th. It's a disgrace.
It's a really tough one. I love it this year. It's definitely benefited us. Home final. Couldn't imagine anything better. In the past, it's been annoying. Hated it, but this year it's working.
It does actually bother me because we were the better team all season, so it would have been nice to have a nice home final.
No, they lost it last week. They had the opportunity. And so I reckon now that it's good that the Raiders got their home ground.